I was in Cohutta, part of the North Georgia wilderness, for 7 days scouting for bears, wild hogs, and deer, prepping for a hunting trip later that year. I had hiked in about 10 miles and then went off the trail for another 3 to 5 miles. Basically, I was in the middle of nowhere. Since I was alone, I was using a hammock that has a built-in bug net and a rain fly over it. I spent about 3 days halfway up the mountain just looking for a good place to hunt. I saw 3 to 4 good-sized bears, about 10 hogs, and came across some good-sized deer. On the fourth day, I was going to head down to a small stream that I had marked on my GPS and then set up camp, restock on water, and prep for the 2-day hike back up. I could have gone a little bit faster, but I wanted to be able to look for any animal sign along the way. As I was approaching this small stream, I noticed a tent, which I was excited to see, as I had been completely alone for a few days, and it's always nice to run into another hiker. Generally, us wilderness folks are pretty down to earth. As I got closer to the tent, I noticed that there was a small pack on the ground just outside of it. I figured the person couldn't have been too far from where the camp was, so I set up my camp about 30 yards away, and with about 4 hours of daylight left, I started cooking some dinner. 2 hours later, I was starting to wonder where the person was. Given that I was in the wilderness and I was a 1+ day hike out, there wasn't much I could do. But I did hike around the site, making a circle as I went out to look for any signs of struggle, in case of a bear attack or maybe they had an injury. I got about a quarter of a mile from where the campsite was, walking in a circle, but I didn't find anything. As night came, no one showed. I started a fire in hopes that the person would be able to find where they set up and have some light. Fires burn really bright and are very easy to see from far away. After eating, searching, and hoping that the person was going to make it back, I called it a night. I had a small flask with me and I took a couple of sips of whiskey, jumped into my hammock with my pistol, and attempted to go to sleep. I sleep pretty hard, I mean really hard, regardless of where I am. Really annoys my friends because I can always seem to fall asleep and stay asleep regardless of where in the world we are. But this night was different. I felt like something was off, but I figured it was just me worrying about this person who, by all of my accounts, was completely missing. So, for the first time in my life, I woke up to the sound of what I thought was footsteps, but not in the sense of footsteps on leaves, but what a heavy-footed person would make walking on an old wood floor. It was extremely loud. I got my gun, I grabbed my headlamp, which was stored in a small compartment up above me, and I waited to see if it would stop. Right at that moment, it did. Then I saw something that scared the shit out of me. On my rainfly, the gleam of a flashlight, faint, but there. I shouted, "Hello!" And right when I did, it sounded like 10 people suddenly running away from me in every direction. I dropped out of my hammock onto the ground, frantically turning on my headlamp, shining it all around me. But I didn't see shit. My heart was racing pretty bad, but I thought it might have just been the reflection of the moon on the rainfly. Yeah, that was it. No footsteps running away. It was probably some armadillos or something, even though their eyes shine and they're pretty easy to spot. Problem was, there was no moon. I'd never seen an armadillo above 2,000 feet. That's not to say that they don't live up there, I just never seen one. And for some reason, the campsite I set up by was gone. The fire had been put out, by water. It was apparent because there was not a damn coal in the thing. I thought for sure it was about 4 a.m., but I'd only been asleep about an hour. At this point, I wanted to leave, but hiking out of the wilderness while it's dark is always a bad idea. So I grabbed my flask, took another swig of whiskey, removed my rain fly so I could see out of my hammock and around the area I was in, and tried my hardest to go back to sleep. As soon as I laid down, I saw some light hit the trees above me. It was clear as coming from downstream, and I got out of my hammock and started yelling, "Hey, y'all need any help?" No response. I saw whatever was putting out the light, and it spun around and started walking downstream, really fast. At this point, I could tell my body had used up all the adrenaline it had, and I was exhausted from it all. I was finally able to fall asleep and woke up about 7 a.m. When I woke up, I noticed that my water filter I had left out was missing. It's a gravity filter, and it hangs on a tree filtering water down into my main bladder that I had put in my backpack. And my water bladder, sitting at the base of the tree, looked like it was cut down the middle with a knife. They cut down my bear bag, which had food in it, and took some of it. The creepiest part of it all was that they went through my bag, which was under my hammock, while I was sleeping. I checked the bear bag before I went back to sleep the second time, and it was still there, hanging, and my bag under my hammock hadn't been touched. I packed all my shit and hightailed it out of there, keeping my pistol close to me and moving as fast as I could. I ended up making the hike back in just under 15 hours. I hiked the trail part in the night because I wasn't about to spend another night out there. I didn't see anyone on my hike out. There were no cars parked at the trailhead, and the DNR said they'd only seen my car there. Since then, I haven't gone out without my friends. I reported all this to the local DNR, but they looked at me like I was crazy. Maybe I am.